Hello, all you beautiful people out there. What is going on? This is your friend Brady coming at you fast with another Paragon Beast Builds video. And today we are going to be looking at my updated builds for half of the fighters that are currently in the game. There are 10. We're going to be looking at 5 of them in this video because it's going to be too long if we look at all 10. And we're going to be focusing on the more tanky ones in this video, ones that should be played more like tanks with more resistance. Whether it's in support, soul lane, or even jungle. This pertains to a variety of fighters. So let's get into it. Side note, by the way, if you guys haven't tried face lotion, like, after shaving, that shit is so bomb. I don't know how many of y'all shave, but I've been shaving for 2 years, and I haven't been using lotion, and I just tried it today, and my face is so fucking soft, dude. It's unreal. But anyway, enough of that. Let's go into the first one. So we're going to be looking at Steel. My homie Steel, he's not my first master, but he was my first wannabe master. I did end up getting a master. But anyway, let's take a look at his deck, at the build that I got for him here. Now, again, you guys can modify these builds if you want, and we're going to be kind of like running through these quick, just looking at the biggest differences from fighter to fighter. So Steel has a really, really high number when it comes to durability. We want Centurion for his prime card because we want him to be the best tank he can be. And with Steel, you don't really need to focus much damage after the beginning, so we're going to start with a Brawler's Ward with 3 minor strikes, and that's going to be it for damage, and I'm going to show you guys why later, because Steel is really, really good when it comes to that. The general trend for these tanks is obviously going to be health, resistance in both sides, and then also having some sort of maybe either cooldown or attack speed, one or the other, depending on what kind of tank you want to make. With Steel, I like using his cooldown, or increasing his cooldown, making him better, so that he can use his abilities more often, he can use his ult more often, he can use his shield push more often, he can use his shield wall more often, just because I like using those abilities to support my teammates. He's a support. He's supposed to have good cooldown reduction because he's a support. He's supposed to keep his teammates alive. So there we go. And the one big, thing about this deck is Stone of Salvation, which basically, for 6 seconds, you gain physical damage equal to 35% of your physical armor. So, when we max out with our final 12-point temper plate here, we have a lot of physical armor. Take 35% of that, convert it into damage right before you use your ult and your shield slide, and it's going to deal a really good amount of damage, and you don't even need to worry about building damage. So that's why I like Stone of Salvation, plus it gives me a little bit more cooldown as well. And then, of course, you have your early game cards like always. Brawler's Ward, Tempered Plate, and Toon Barrier with 3 lesser healths are going to be your early game cards. And then you're just going to start switching them out for mid and later game cards. Stone of Salvation is my mid game card. Everything else is my late game card. So let's move on to the next one, which is Pimp Daddy Hooker, aka Richter. Just played one of my first games back to him a couple days ago, and I've just been on a roll with him lately, and I just love him. I have him mastered. He was actually my first master during the master race. So again, similarly to Steel, you're going to be a support, so you're going to have Centurion. You're going to make sure you don't want to die. But unlike Steel, we're actually going to have Blink Charm on him, which we'll probably put in for our second or third card on him. Just because Blink plus Pull equals holy shit, that's scary, so we want to make sure we have those. We have our Amp Crystal for starters with damage. If you're going to be a good support, you usually start with the Ward, but with our Ward, we actually have a 2-point upgrade in here because we just have so many more upgrades in other places because of that Blink Charm being a 5-point card and not a 6-point card, so we get to put 1 more point of damage in here. So you're going to start off with Amp Crystal, you're going to have Mage's Ward in here, and then when you get, your Blink Charm third, you're going to put that in, and then you can put in the 2-pointer, and then it won't be an odd number anymore. So usually you put the Blink Charm in about third, fourth maybe if you really need to. And then you have your early game survivability. Again, the same trends. Then you're going to replace them for maxed out armor. And then again, you're going to have a little bit of cooldown because you want to be throwing hooks on hooks on hooks on hooks. And it's going to be freaking awesome. You have 12, 24, 36, 48. You have your Ward, which is going to be 55, and then you have your Blink Charm for a max of 60. So that's the deck right here for Richter. Again, Blink Charm is the biggest difference with him. I think he is the only hero out of these 5 that I have Blink Charm in. So, let's go on to the next one. The next one we're going to look at is Greystone, my Dovahkiin, even though, some Skyrim fans out there, especially with Skyrim Remastered right now, might be like, oh, he doesn't fucking fuss row da, you dipshit, but whatever, I still think he looks like a Dragonborn. He looked like one of my characters when I played Skyrim, so suck it! Norse all the way. anyway, let's go. So we have Warlord for him. We're actually going to give him more damage with this prime card because he does have 2 lives, which makes him super duper tanky. Okay, it makes him technically twice as tanky, or 1.5 times more tanky, because he comes back with another, half of his health when he comes back. But we are going to build him a bit more tanky anyway than most people might build him, but not off the start. So this is where it kind of gets a little different. We are going to usually start off with a ward in him. We're going to start off with Guardian's Ward, which is going to give, minor strike, and a lesser health in there. Then we have our Adamant Edge, which is going to give us 2 minor strikes and another lesser health. This is going to be our damage early game. And then usually I play solo lane as him, so especially if you're going up against somebody like Iggy, Radiant Mantle is super good. This is basically Mad Spore Sash, but in order form, so you deal 15 plus player level energy damage per second to nearby enemies, which also ticks away at wards. It also ticks away at Iggy turrets. So this is really good if you're laning against Iggy. I love using this. I usually get, if I'm laning against Iggy, I might get the second instead of third. But yeah, those are your early game cards. Sometimes I put a lot of health in here. If not, then I'll just put a little bit of health and move on to my next cards for a bit more damage and whatnot. But after that, you have your Amulet of the Veteran. You have a mid-game card right here, 9 points total. Then usually you can, if this all depends, okay, this Greystone deck is super, it can either go bruiser or super tank depending on what stage of the game you are. If you're super ahead, then you can go, more attack speed and just be super crazy. But usually I actually only build attack speed later, even maybe last. And I will show you guys later why, because we have Satori Cloak. Okay, that's a big one in this deck. Satori Cloak. Again, you shred enemy physical armor or energy armor equal to 50% of your current physical armor or energy armor for 4 seconds. So that's per, basic attack. That's per basic attack. It does stack for those 4 seconds. So it's really, really nice to have. That's why we have, again, maxed out resistance items. Okay, you're going to see this is a popular trend. Maxed out resistance items. Satori Cloak, because it is 5 points instead of 3 points. We do need to take away 2 points of barrier, but that's still a lot of barrier. That's still more than enough. And that's going to be helping us with the shred. And we build this attack speed last, so you can utilize that Satori Cloak passive better and shred armor quicker and quicker that way. So, and then of course, you replace your first damage items with this Amulet of the Veteran for your later damage item, which will also give you more health. This is a really, really great build. I love Greystone. Greystone's my easy mode. You guys know that I have a high win rate with Greystone just because he's just so easy to use. And yeah, I just love him. He's just great. So anyway, the next one we're going to be looking at is Rampage. Now, this one is probably the trickiest one when it comes to building because he's just been patched and reworked so many different times that, it's just been a roller coaster of emotions with this guy. But we are going to go with Centurion for his damage because we do build a bit more damagey items than the other tanks in this group of tanks that I have here. And that's why we go with Centurion for our prime card, because we don't need Warlord. We don't need that much damage with him. Excuse me. Sorry. Had a cough. Anyway, we're going to start off usually with our ward. We have our Guardian's Ward right here. 2 minor strikes, 1 lesser health. Again, have some early game health, but also have some strikes. This is whether you're jungling or whether you're, laning. It doesn't matter how you play Rampage. It doesn't matter. Then you have a Flashfire Piston, okay, with 2 minor strikes and a strike in there as well. Okay, that just helps in conserving my minor strikes because I only have 4. If I had 6, I could make such better early game decks, but I only have 4, so I gotta kind of, cut some losses somewhere, cut some corners, so to speak. So this is usually my second item. Obviously, you back with the Guardian's Key. You don't, you get the Guardian's Key later. I still don't have Beastmaster's Key. If I had Beastmaster's Key, I would start with that shit, believe me, but I don't. I only have Guardian's Key. So, yeah, well, then we go on, and we have Thorn Greenweave, and we also have Mad Spore Sash. So, again, this depends on what order. If you want some extra physical resistance early on, build Mad Spore Sash. Also really good for jungling early game, for really quick jungling, so you can have Mad Spore Sash on there because it gives you a good amount of cleave damage. And then have Thorn Greenweave as your early game resistance item. Okay, plus it gives you more damage when you fully upgrade it. After this, I actually usually go into 2 Swift Creek Hearts with this kind of setup right here, with 5 points of health in there, because it gives you attack speed as well. So with Rampage, we're building not only damage, but also attack speed, and that is the difference between, Rampage and the rest of these fighters. Now, we're going to build a lot of attack speed early on, in comparison to everybody else. And then later on, you see, as your late game final card, you switch out, Flashfire Piston with this Flashfire Piston, which has way more attack speed and way more damage, and it's just crazy. And also, another thing to note is that we have Spiked Bone Plate and Thorn Greenweave instead of Temper Plate and Toon Barrier when it comes to our resistance items, because we already get plenty of health from these two Swift Creek Hearts. And we don't need to build cooldown on Rampage. Really, you really don't build cooldown on Rampage. Now let's go over to our last one, which is Emotionally Insecure. My favorite, fucking Sevarog, man. I love Sevarog. Sevarog's so dope. So again, we have Centurion because he is the tankiest of tanks. By the time I'm done with this build, I'm usually at 4,500 health with full armor, full resistance, a good amount of damage, and even some attack speed thrown in here. Again, we have Lord's Ward. This actually is interesting. See, again, I went over in my Sevarog updated Diamond build video why I use Lord's Ward, and not Brawler's Ward, again, because I don't have that many minor strikes. But you usually start off with Executioner's Key and Health Pot, because I like jungling with him. That's usually how I start. If you're in lane, you can start, with these three right here. And then go into a Windcarver Blade, which is really interesting. This is really different. It's not a 6-point damage card. It's actually a 9-point damage card off the start, which makes it really easy for him to farm early game. Plus, when you put in Madspore Sash next, it just makes it really, really nice, really, really easy. We have Lord's Ward, which we usually put in after Madspore Sash. You don't even need to upgrade Madspore Sash like right away like I have here. I just have those cards in case I decide to keep Madspore Sash instead of upgrading to a Tempered Plate. Instead of, if we're going up against an Iggy or something, it's really good against turrets, so I like to have that there. And then we go into Swift Creek Heart, which we have our attack speed here. We also have greater health in here, so this is going to be our primary health off the bat. After our, initial armor and damage cards, such as Thorn Greenweave, we're going to build that Swift Creek Heart. So again, if you see 1-point card items in my decks, assume that you build those before you build the higher point card items that replace them later. For example, Thorn Greenweave is going to be replaced by Toon Barrier. Madspore Sash is going to be replaced by Tempered Plate later on. And then you have Pendulum of the Lords as the last card, just for a bit more cooldown, some mana, because Sevarog does need a little bit of mana, plus even more health. This is just an insane amount of health. Just absolutely freaking awesome. I love this. And yeah, this is just an awesome deck. I love this deck. I love this deck. If you can find a better deck to work for you, obviously go ahead and do it. This is just to give you guys a couple ideas and just to show you my updated decks if you literally have no idea where and how to go with this. So there are all my updated decks for my tanks. We're going to be looking at the other fighters in the other videos, so make sure to stay tuned for that. And as always, if this was helpful, make sure you drop a like. If you did get to this point of the video, make sure you comment, "Face lotion is sexy," in honor of my weird intro. And also look in the description for a link for the other video when it does come out. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed, and as always, make sure you all have a wonderful day. Peace.